Hi! In this video, we are going to make this bass line. You'll be surprised by how simple it is. This video is split into two parts. Now, I know you're in a rush, but both parts are important for creating a clean bass line, so watch the video all the way through. In the first part, we'll use the synthesizer to create a simple bass patch with some processing on top. And in the second part, we will record several of those notes into audio and arrange them. First of all, we need a kick. Now, I know a lot of people argue that you should make your kicks yourself, but as a beginner, there's certain elements you should just sample from other tracks, because it would save you so much time, and if your goal is to finish tracks, then just get a kick from a different track. So let's just grab a couple of kicks. I have here one from Splice, and one which I sampled from a different track. Now, they're both sounding amazing, so sampling a kick from a different track means you have a professional start for your track. And it's just a kick, no one will ever notice from where you took it. If you're in Ableton, make sure that you get rid of this fade in the beginning, and let's make a cut right here, because we want this kick note to be only on an 8th note. The reason I'm using two different kicks here is because at the end I will audition them and choose the one which fits the best with my bass. So we are working on 143 BPM, so at the moment we have this. Let's create a quarter note on G0. In Vital, I have the initialized preset. First thing that we need to do is take the phase and the phase randomization all the way down to 0, so the synthesizer is producing the exact same note every time. So our bass line is staying stable and in mono. This is essential for creating bass lines. You don't want your sub-frequencies to be in stereo, because that can cause phase cancellation. In other words, it will make your bass less powerful because certain parts of the bass will have a reduction in volume. Then let's open our filter, let's take the cutoff all the way down, and let's take the resonance all the way down, and I will add macro 1 onto the filter cutoff. Then let's go to the effects and add some distortion. If I right click on the drive, enter value, 6 dB of drive. Then I'll go to the distortion filter and turn it on post effects. Let's also here take the resonance and the cutoff all the way down, and I will assign macro 1 to the filter cutoff. So this macro is called filter. Let's quickly make a rack out of the Vital with Command or Control J. Click on this triangle, configure, then click on filter, then we can assign this to macro 1 on our instrument rack here in Ableton. This is important for a later step when we will write some automation. It will just make our job a little easier. So let's call this one filter. Now if I take this filter and I write something like this, we now have this playing. If I go back to here and I get rid of this filter on the distortion, notice what effect it has. It sounds much more refined with this filter on. So the distortion is not masking this filter, but actually the distortion is only within the range of this filter. We don't need to do anything else with the synthesizer, it's that simple, but there's few more extra processing that are essential for creating this bass line. Let's first of all grab an EQ, and it's important that you have an EQ which you can change to linear phase mode. We will explain in a second why this is important. I will also grab the oscilloscope, which will help me to view the waveform, like so. So why is it important that we have a linear phase EQ? We want to cut the low frequencies with quite a sharp slope, 30 dB per octave, and we want to make the cut around 40 Hz. Anything below the 40 Hz is a really big waveform. A bass line has really long waveform, so the waves that are going out of the speakers can get up to 10 meters long or even longer. So first of all, you can barely hear those frequencies below 40 Hz, And second, they take a lot of space, so we just need to cut them. But I want you to look at the scope and see what's happening when I cut those frequencies. So let's turn this cut off for now. And let's turn it on. Notice what it did to the bass. Let's turn it back off. We have a nice clean shape. Let's turn it back on. It's got all squished up here. So that's not good. But notice what happens when I turn this to linear phase. So let's start when it's off. And let's turn it back on. No change in the phase of the bass. That's why you need to use a linear phase EQ when you're making this cut on the bass. Now, this is probably a good time to mention that if you want to achieve a clean mix every time, without exception, scan this QR code or check in the description, and that would lead you to my Into the Mix course, where I am passionately simplifying complex concepts. I'm taking a student's track and I'm mixing it from the ground up, including building the kick and bass, percussions, and recreating some of the leads. Back to our synth, there's one more thing I want to do, and that is adding a pitch bend. So if you remember from the intro, there was some parts of the bass which were going like ooh, wah, wah, wah. So we want to do that. So let's take this LFO and let's do something like so, and let's change this to a quarter note. We will do the exact same thing on LFO 2. Let's take LFO 1 and let's assign it to the pitch. Right click on this green circle, edit value, and let's type 12. So 12 semitones. So same thing with LFO 2, but this time we will edit the value to -12. Now, both of them will be playing together. Let's change the automation of the filter. If you press Shift and do something like that, it will reverse it. So you can notice that at the moment nothing is happening because the pitch is going up and down at the exact same rate. So if we take macro 2 and assign it to this purple circle, notice how it now has a green little circle within the purple circle. So macro 2 is like an on and off switch for this LFO, and macro 3 will be an on and off switch for this LFO. So this we will call up, and macro 3 will be called down. Now, if I turn the up, yeah, and if I turn the down, nice. And actually, with the down, it works better if you take this note, and if you press Shift and arrow key up, put it an octave higher, so it's on G1 now. Nice. Okay, next step. This is a more of a sound design trick to add some color to the bass. So let's go and take a plugin called Disperser. This is an all-pass filter, and you can tune this filter to a key. So if we're working on G, like that, let's turn the amount a little bit lower, and let's have a listen to what exactly it does. So let's turn it off, back on. It kind of makes the bass a little bit more wet. Okay, another cool thing that we can do is we can add a Saturn after that, after the disperser, and let's add a band on around 300 Hz. I can turn off the first band, so this Saturn doesn't affect any of the low frequencies, so we keep the sub frequencies clean. On this band, which controls the high frequency, I will change the mode to Destroy in the Effects tab. So this is obviously a little bit too much. Let's take it a little bit lower. Something like 11, between 9 to 12 usually works quite well. There's another type of distortion that we can add, and that is erosion. Now here's a trick to keep this plugin in key. So you can see the slider, it only gives me frequencies. So I need to find the right frequencies for the key of G. So there is a free Max for Live device called Pitch Converter, and it will tell you for which key what is the corresponding frequency. Let's start first of all with G8. So we want 12,500. Then let's increase the amount. Let's turn the Saturn off for now. And let's change this to noise. This is not really prominent. What if we go to G7? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 6,270. Now you can hear that white noise, but we can take the amount a little bit lower. Or a little bit higher. Maybe the white noise. Sounding pretty cool. It will sound even cooler like this. Let's go to the automation and let's again press Option and reverse it. Maybe take it a little bit lower. And let's take the amount even a little bit lower. Let's get rid of the pitch converter and we will do something with this in just a bit. The next thing, I want to add a reverb. Yes, I'm going to add a reverb on a bass. But don't worry, it would not affect any of the lower frequencies. It's just to enhance some of the higher frequencies. My favorite reverb, as you might know, is Comet. And I'm going to use a preset. One of the small ones always works really well. One of my favorite is This Can't Fit. Go to the low dump and very important, turn it on all the way to 75. So we're cutting all of the low frequencies. Let's turn it off. Just adds a little bit of color to that distortion on top. Let's try the Saturn. Turn it off. And this will work really well like this. Let's duplicate this note and let's do something like this. Let's hear how this sounds with the erosion. There's so much you can do with this. Now, one more step before I'm going and recording these into audio and then arranging them is we need to clean this a little bit. So let's grab an EQ plugin, and this is essential. The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure there are no side information in the lower frequencies. What that means is I want to keep the lower frequencies in mono, like I said before, to make sure your bass is stable and consistent. Let's add a low cut like that. On this tab, instead of stereo, choose side, and we will cut all of the side frequencies from around 300 Hz. All of this we are cutting from the low frequencies. If I turn it off, the effect is absolutely minimal. I can't hear anything, but this is essential to make sure that the lower frequencies stay clean. Let's grab another EQ, and this time we will just clean up some of the harsher parts of this sound. So let's create a bell like this. Around here sounds really muddy. I want to make it a little cut. This is enough for now. Let's have some fun and record some notes into audio and arrange them. Recording the notes into audio is essential for keeping a clean bassline, and you will understand why in just a bit. One important plugin that I forgot is the Trans X Multi. This is a multiband transient shaper, but I'm not using it quite to shape transients. I'm using it because it has this really nice trim option. It gets it as loud as possible. So let's remove the erosion, and we have a pitch down. And I think we can lower the frequency just a little bit. Let's record this into audio. So you can notice here one thing. If I kept this in MIDI, this will spill into the kick. So this part of the bass is going to overlap with the kick, and this is going to destroy the transient of the kick. We don't want that, right? So let's delete that. For the second note, we'll make some sort of a plug. So let's draw this type of automation, and let's reduce this quite a bit. Maybe 50. I will also turn on the erosion, and let's turn off the down. Let's record this into audio. For the third, I'm going to take the same automation that we had for the first note, because this will be a gliding note, and I'm going to turn the pitch up option. Let's turn the erosion off, and let's record this into audio as well. Amazing. Let's again cut the end of the note. Okay, so let's turn the up off. Let's go to a filter, and we will take the same plucky automation that we had before, and we will copy them onto this note, but this time we will turn the Saturn on. So we have the destroy, or you can use the Redux and Ableton if you don't have a fab filter Saturn. So just to remind you, it's doing this. If I turn it off, back on. One more note we need to record. So let's turn the destroy off. Let's go to a filter, and again, let's copy this automation into here. This will just be a clean note with no other effects on it. So let's record this one into audio as well. We have all of these long notes, and this is why it's important to record them into audio. Let's, for example, solo the first kick and bass. Let's put them all in a group, and we will add another one of these scopes, this time on the group of the kick and bass together. So we have the first kick playing with this note. We can basically do this. We can just sidechain or make a little bit of a fade right here and add a little bit of a fade in the end. And if I turn this bass note off, to mention that if you want, you can see there is no change in the shape of this kick. Exception, scan this QR code, and that is very important. We don't want the bass notes to overlap with our kick, so this is an easy way to do that. So now we have this. So I guess I will see you in the next video. Go watch this next if you want to learn how to make a Psytrance snare.